Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I have actually never played a Silent Hill game in my life. But I will say this, I am very much interested in the Silent Hill 2 remake. But you're probably wondering, why are you talking about this if you've never played a Silent Hill game? What do you know? Well, I'll say this much. The franchise does interest me, and here's the thing, I've actually watched a lot of iceberg videos on the Silent Hill lore, and especially on Silent Hill 2 since it's the one that's being remade. But the game itself has always interested me because I know it's considered very much beloved by so many fans worldwide, because it's considered a psychological horror type of game. It's not like a game like Resident Evil where it's like very much action packed. There's not a whole lot of, I'm not going to say thought put into it, because there's thought put into Resident Evil, but in terms of the enemy types that you face in Silent Hill and like overall background and the setting, there is so much thought put into it that really stands the test of time, in my honest opinion. And this is coming from somebody who has never played any of these games, so I can recognize from the outside looking in that a lot of these things are beloved for a reason. This franchise is beloved for a reason, especially Silent Hill 2. So as of recording this video, the game will probably be out by the time this video releases, or at least the early access of Silent Hill 2 Remake. But essentially what I want to do with this video is kind of discuss my overall thoughts of what I think of Silent Hill 2 as somebody who's never played it, and how it compares, or how this game is going to compare to prior remakes such as the Resident Evil games like Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4, and even the most recent Dead Space remake that came out last year. But I want to just go over like, what is Silent Hill, why is this franchise so beloved, and so much more. Like, what's with the remake, is this remake necessary? We're going to get into that today, but before we do that, and before we get into the overall video, I want you guys to go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel so you can get more banger content like this one. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So, like I said from the start, Silent Hill 2 is very much a beloved game. It's one of those games that a lot of people still talk about to this day, not even just because the remake is coming out, but it's just one of those games that's stuck with a lot of fans worldwide because of the psychological themes that the game depicts, that were like compared to other games that just don't necessarily delve into something like those themes. This game does it, and this game was made over, 20 years ago? I believe this was released back in 2001. And so for a game to have that kind of impact on so many people worldwide, that is something to really admire on such a large scale, especially for gamers as a whole. But something else to really admire about this game, especially when I've been doing my research and watching so many iceberg videos on Silent Hill 2 alone, is the amount of lore and detail that was put into this game, and the amount of endings this game offers, and a lot of ambiguity. And something else that this game offers is, in terms of the detail, are the enemy types that this game features and what they represent. You wouldn't think that the enemy types that the enemies represent is something, into that like psychological depth, like the way that this character is deformed or how it looks resembles this certain theme, and so on and so forth. I didn't realize there was that kind of detail in these games until I did a lot of research and delving into these iceberg videos that YouTube likes to push out if you do in fact look up anything Silent Hill related. But furthermore, on the details this game offers, or the amount of lore I should say, are the characters featured in Silent Hill 2, or at least the original. They all represent something that's related to the main character. They all have their like personal struggles that they have to overcome, but some of them do, some of them don't. And I just think that like a game that features something like that is rather special and in a way timeless. And honestly, the game kind of speaks for itself, and especially the reception this game got all the way back in 2001 and onward. I think that's something to really admire. And the last thing I want to mention to in terms of admiration for this game is the soundtrack or even the music. I can't tell you how much hours I've logged into just listening to ambient tracks that's related to Silent Hill 2, or even like fan-made ambient sounds. I mean, and for those people, because I know millions of people listen to the ambient Silent Hill tracks on YouTube especially, so if we can get millions of those people to watch this video, that'd be fantastic. But all jokes aside, I think the music is definitely one of the more appealing things about this game, you know, from an outsider perspective, because it does reel you in like a very calm yet eerie way. And it looks like the remake is going to maintain that sort of feeling that the original game offered, as the original composer for that game has returned for the remake, and he looks like he's going to be, in some sense, remastering or even remaking some of the elements from the original score, which I am very excited about. And you even get to hear a little bit of it in some of the newer trailers and even in some gameplay clips. And I think just the music alone is kind of what reeled me in from the very get-go with Silent Hill, and especially Silent Hill 2, and I'm hoping that the score for the remaster is an upgrade in itself, and that it will honestly, I'm hoping that it'll be better than the original. But granted, that's kind of a huge ask, especially, you know, since the original score from Silent Hill 2 is very much beloved and it's very iconic. I'm hoping that it'll maintain that sort of iconicity that the original offered with this remake, but and it may have the potential to do so, but if it doesn't, not a big deal. It's kind of a hard ask if you were to ask me, honestly, and especially anyone that played the original. And in all fairness, let's say like the game just sucks, like the remake itself sucks, which I don't think it will, but if it does, I hope the score is something to at least write home about, for sure. I think, you know, music is definitely one of the most important aspects in any sort of medium, especially like a visual medium like movies and games. I'm really hoping that the music will be like one of the major highlights with the remake, and I think it will, but I don't think the music is just necessarily going to be the major highlight with the remake. I think the gameplay will too, and that's going to lead on to my next point. Now, I understand the original Silent Hill 2 had a very, you know, unique feeling. It had that original aesthetic of the fixed camera angles when you would move the character around. And with this new remake, with the remake itself, and it having that third person view similar to, you know, say like the Resident Evil remake, where it has that third person feel instead of the, you know, fixed camera angles, I think this is necessary, especially, you know, I understand I've never played the original necessarily, but I think this change is necessary, especially, you know, for modern gaming and, you know, with like how Gen Z plays games these days. I think this is definitely necessary. It's more familiar, but I think this can offer, you know, very much unique opportunities in terms of the gameplay itself, and like how the player is going to experience this for the first time and, you know, go through some familiar areas. But it looks like Bloober Team, the team that developed this remake, has offered some unique settings within the game, like obviously, you know, familiar areas from the original, but they've added some, you know, new twists to it, new areas for the player to explore and, you know, solve puzzles and whatnot. And on top of that, in some sense, newer ways to fight the enemy types, even though it looks very similar to the original in terms of like the hit animations, or like how the main character swings certain objects or even shoots. This one seems to be a bit more smooth in terms of gameplay. Now, initially when I saw the gameplay trailer a while back, the animations looked very stiff and just not very polished, but according to Bloober Team, that's actually not how it's going to look, and that wasn't even a reflection of the final product, and it honestly made them look bad. But based on some gameplay I've seen from the final product, and especially people that have gotten review copies of Silent Hill 2 Remake, the gameplay itself looks really great. It looks very smooth, and it doesn't look anything too jarring or like anything too difficult to get into. But I am curious as to how it's going to be for some of the old heads or some of the OGs that played the original game. I wonder how they're going to feel about, you know, playing it in third person and not having that fixed camera angle feel. Like, will it be, in a way, a jarring experience for them? Will they like the new third person feel of Silent Hill 2? I am very curious on that end because, since that game is so beloved and like that overall feeling is so beloved, I'm really curious if like they're gonna love this newer gameplay style more or less than the original, because I understand like the fixed camera angles kind of gave you that eerie feeling of like you like the player not knowing what to do like in terms of like where to go, and it kind of gave you that like fearful instinct of like, oh, maybe I don't want to move my character over here because something bad might happen, or maybe it'll be a rewarding pathway to go through. That is something I found rather interesting about the original, was like that limited viewpoint of not knowing necessarily where to go until like, you spend a few more minutes figuring out the areas on where to go, or like solve puzzles or find your objective. And I think with this newer one, I think in some ways it's going to be easier, but I wonder if the OGs are going to appreciate or not so much appreciate that overall feeling of, they're going to have a better time, or, a better feeling of knowing where to go, since I think the game offers, a map of like the layout of Silent Hill itself. And I think the OGs, to some extent, will appreciate the newer layouts, the overall gameplay style, because I think it is going to offer a rather unique experience from the original, and as any remake should. I think this remake will be similar to how Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 4 played, and in the same way that those games offered something unique from the original. And I'm sure people thought at the time, like, what were those remakes even necessary, especially for Resident Evil 4? And I think even after the release of Resident Evil 4 Remake, I know so many people who loved the original Resident Evil 4 and they thought that game could not be touched. But in my honest opinion, as someone who's played both versions, the OG and the remake, I think the remake version of Resident Evil 4 is so much better. I think it plays a lot better. And to some extent, I think that's what Silent Hill 2, the remake of Silent Hill 2, is going to be for me. And even for a lot of OGs, because I know, like, with a game like Silent Hill 2, like, so I know so many people who probably thought to themselves, like, this remake is just not necessary. That one was perfect. You just shouldn't touch it at all. But I think for like the, modern day gaming, we need something like this. We definitely need a revitalized version of the original. And I'm not saying that like in a negative way, or like saying that like the original Silent Hill 2 just sucked. That's not at all what I'm saying, but I'm saying that this game offers a unique opportunity for not only OGs but new heads like myself, for people to get into. And I think there will be a lot to uncover, especially with a lot of the puzzles, a lot of the story elements. And I did hear that this game is going to offer new endings, or newer sort of ambiguous endings that the original didn't offer. And that is pretty much what sold me on this remake, was the amount of new stuff it's offering compared to the original, and just the overall graphical settings, or just the overall graphics of the newer one. It looks really great. I think the visuals look great, and they're pretty much on par with the original. I think the OG visuals are great as well. I think it makes Silent Hill what it is, and I think this newer one pretty much accomplishes what the original already did, but in some ways better. But I am curious as to what the OG's thoughts are on this particular element in terms of the visuals. Do you think the OG is better, or do you think this newer one is a lot better? I would love to know in the comments below. I want to go ahead and end this video off by simply asking you guys, or leaving it to you guys in the comment section, to discuss whether or not you're going to get this game, and whether you think it's worth it. Did you play the original at some point, or have you ever played the original? What interests you about this remake, or maybe doesn't interest you about the remake? And another question I'll ask is, do you think this game will stick the landing? Do you think it'll be up there with, the recent Resident Evil remakes, the Dead Space remake, or any other remake that's coming out? Do you think it's going to be on par, or maybe not on par with those remakes? I'm genuinely curious as to what you guys have to say for yourselves. And the last question I'll pose, and this one is mainly for the OGs that have played any of the Silent Hill games, what do you find appealing about this franchise, and what honestly made you fall in love with it? Was it the themes, the characters, the gameplay? What was it that you thought was appealing? That much I definitely want to know, and whether you think I should check it out for myself, or at least play some of those games, or the original games. But with all that said, I think I'm going to conclude this video here, and I'm simply going to ask you guys, if you think I should get the Silent Hill 2 remake as of now, or like right now when the game comes out, type ones in the chat, and if you think I should wait until like, you know, Christmas to get it, or just, you know, wait till it goes on sale later on, press 2 in the comment section. But hey, if you guys made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching, and if you haven't checked out my other videos, feel free to do so. I think you guys will enjoy those videos. I make a lot of content that has to do with movies and games, and if you want me to make more content like this or anything to do with video games in general, let me know in the comments below, or simply like this video and subscribe to the channel. But thanks again for watching the video. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.